that. Okay.
I didn't know I was going to announce that. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you. I didn't want to interrupt. Do you want me to record it?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Then the second class was the types of vows that you can take, you know, and what they're for. You know, your lay vows, your freedom vows, the bodhisattva vows, and the vows of the diamond way. And then last week we talked about the ceremony, who can take the vows, who can give the vows, what the ceremony's like. And so that's all like the groundwork to getting into tonight's class and the next few classes, which cover the vows themselves. So there's you know, as we were talking with there's the root vows, which they're called satung in Tibetan, and it means sa means root and tung means to fall down. And so, you know, what it says in the scripture is that to break these is to fall in, causes one to fall into the hells, you know. So and that's a whole like you know, whole scope of potential. It's negative potential, really. So the hells can be, you know, as they're described in scripture, pretty nasty. So and what I think about them is if you can imagine it, you can go there. So you know, or you've been there, and which is probably both the case. So you know, and the you know, we're in a process of evolving ourselves out of suffering, out of in towards freedom from suffering, freedom from mental affliction, freedom from pain, you know. So you know, that's the upside. Right. Okay. And there's 18 root downfalls. There's 46 secondary vows. They're called Nyeje in Tibetan. If any of you know Tibetan, I'm probably butchering it, but that's phonetically how it's spelled. And Nye means bad and J means did. So just, it's like a whoops kind of, you know, thing. The root downfalls are also called pampas in Tibetan, and that means defeat, a defeat. Like you've been defeated by your mental afflictions is really what that's referring to. Okay. All right. So we're going to cover the first 9 root vows tonight. They're interesting. The first 4 have 2 parts to them. Actually, a lot of them have multiple parts, but specifically the first 4 have 2 parts, and they're connected. We'll talk more about what they're dealing with for us. So the first vow is yeah, but there's two parts to it, Mark, if you're putting that up there. Because the second part of it is criticizing others or criticizing others. The vow itself, as written, is the root downfall of praising yourself or criticizing others.
Sorry, I can't spell. I'm gonna have to copy.
So
Okay.
you can put in that other part. I mean, that's part of it, but yeah, there you go. Thank you, Mark. That's good. So, you know, the way it shows up in, we have a way of tracking our vows, and that's we use a 6 time a day book, and that breaks these vows apart. But for tonight's purposes, we're going to list them together. We'll talk about their parts. Yep. Okay. So the root downfall of praising yourself is praising yourself for gain, like and really, I mean, so it's like a boasting, but to break the vow, it most of the time it's a lie. The praise that you're heaping upon yourself is a lie. And it's done for that purpose, to either gain favor, gain something material, gain admiration of others, that kind of a thing. And then criticizing others, you know, in our book, we keep it as a separate vow, and it is separate in that it's or, like, the vow isn't broken by doing both. It's praising yourself or criticizing others. And so that's something to really watch out for, because it's very common. Criticizing others is a very common thing in our culture. You know, the news cycle is full of it. You know, it's just it's divisiveness. And anyway, the motivation behind it is yeah, either it's want, it's desire for something to be gained, either physical or, you know, in the realm of admiration, that kind of thing. Right. So that's cool. And I would say, and so, all right. So we'll come back to that part of it, what the motivation's about. And the vow is broken as soon as the person that if you're criticizing somebody and somebody's listening, when they hear it and they understand what you've said, that's when the vow is broken. So it's not just criticizing someone in your mind, it's actually speaking it to another person and having them understand it. And, you know, as I thought about this vow, as I think about this vow, and and in my life, when I, you know, when I've criticized others, sometimes it's connected to elevating my own status in that person's mind. It's an indirect way of praising myself. All right. So, okay. So it's attachment to desire is the mental, is motivation, mental affliction, I would actually call it. Right. Okay. So let me get this organized here. The second root downfall is not giving got my papers mixed up. Is not giving the Dharma and giving material assistance, right? Chunor mitor. And this is also out of desire. It's a kind of stinginess. And so this one's broken when if on a material assistance, it's broken if you're the only one that can provide it and it's something that the person really needs. And then withholding the Dharma from somebody is if you, that comes out of, like, both of these things have in them a desire to harm another. So again, it would be something that the person was looking for, asking for, and you chose to withhold it. Now that's in like that's in like direct dharma, right? The other thing would be is if, say, it was somebody that you didn't like, and you just chose to mistreat them, like you didn't exhibit dharmic awareness. Okay. Yeah. Or somehow you wanted to not see that person benefit in some way. So it's a kind of stinginess or greed, or it's a mental affliction that is born out of stinginess. Okay. Good. And then the third one is, let me just check. I want to see if I've got anything else I wanted to say about that. Yeah. So then the third one is failing to accept an apology or a suggestion, or striking another person. So this is either one or both, like the other. It's a either or, but sometimes it could be both. So like if there was a person who you didn't want to accept their apology because you were so angry with them, and then you instead hit them, right? That would be breaking both parts of this vow. But it's to just do the first would be because you're angry with somebody not accepting their apology, if they were to offer an apology. And then, more subtly, like if somebody makes a suggestion to reject the suggestion out of hand because you're pissed at them, because you're upset with them, as a way to hurt them, right? And same with the apology, like not accepting it as a way to hurt their feelings, hurt them. And then obviously striking another person out of anger, in a premeditated way. So what they say is that if you're in a fight, like if you're in a situation and a fight spontaneously arises and you hit somebody, that doesn't count. Like you can defend yourself in a fight. Yeah.
Can you explain that reject the suggestion a little bit more? I don't think I'm fully picking up on that as it relates to like it's different than apology. I'm having a hard time processing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different than an apology. And it doesn't mean that you have to accept the suggestion, but it's to not consider it out of anger, like with the intent of hurting the other person. If you're, so that's what that's about. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Kind of. So if someone were to say, like, if it was a suggestion to help you in some way, out of anger, you just flat out reject it.
Yeah. Anger,
is
pride,
it that simple?
Yeah. So not give consideration to another person's point of view.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Right. So now later we'll talk about the chains that have to be in place to break a vow fully. And so, you don't have to accept everything that everybody suggests to you. That's not what it's saying. It's really, out of desire to harm. And the motivation behind this vow, behind the breaking of this vow, would be anger. Like the opposite of desire would be like to, push something away. Right. Okay. And then, so then the fourth vow is giving up the greater way, which is the Mahayana, or teaching false dharma. So, giving up the greater way. The greater way here is referring to the teachings of the Mahayana, right? Which are the teachings of bodhicitta as integral part of the Dharma. So giving them up would be saying, you could say that they weren't taught by the Buddha, or that they're not legitimate Buddhist teachings. The Mahayana is not necessary to become enlightened. Those kinds of things would be giving up the greater way. Yeah. And then teaching false dharma would be to, that's something that we need to be careful about. So that would be teaching false dharma, like, you read a book and it made a lot of sense to you, and you decided to teach it as Buddha Dharma, as something that the Buddha taught or something like that, but it's not actually from scripture. So where it's important to make distinctions if you're teaching or whatever is if you're making commentary on a teaching and it's how you interpret the teaching or your experience with the teaching or your understanding of it, right? It's important to articulate that that's what you're saying. Like, the way I understand it is, or what I do to help me, do that, right? Rather than to say that that's Dharma, like that's the truth or something, Okay, does that make sense? And then there's all kinds of ways that Dharma gets twisted. It's something I admire about this school a lot is I've been in situations where people have used the Dharma to their own like personal advantage, to take advantage of students or to sort of justify their own behaviors that aren't necessarily ethical or whatever. So it's important. One of what I like about this school is that the scripture is so integrated into the teachings. Like, you have a reading for this class that goes over all of this material and it'll take you more deeply into it. And so, you can see if like I say something that isn't congruent with what you read, then, then that, and I'm saying that that's the way it is, then, then that's, I'm teaching false dharma, But to break the vow, you'd be wanting to get something for it. Or you'd just be out of your own ignorance, like you're misunderstanding the teachings. All right. Yeah, Tanya.
So the motivation for it is, again, gain.
It's ignorance, really.
So the motivation is ignorance as well as the mental affliction.
Yeah, it comes out of ignorance. The mental affliction is ignorance, and I think the motivation, would vary, because it could be innocent, but it may be for gain. It might,
Right.
Okay, so I wanted to just point something out about these vows, because about these first four, and other than that, they each have two parts, and the two parts are related, but that they cover the different kinds of ignorance. So there's, if you ever saw one of the Wheel of Life images, there's a rooster, a serpent, a serpent, and a pig in the middle of the Wheel of Life. And they represent the three different ignorances, right? So the rooster is ignorant liking, the pig is ignorant disliking, and the snake is ignorance. And I may have those confused. But those are the three. All right. So I'm not teaching you false star, but those three are the three. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, can you blow that up? Yeah. So there's a pig, the serpent, and I guess that's the rooster there. Yeah. It doesn't look like a rooster. But see, and each one comes out of the other's mouth. So the root ignorance is wrong worldview, not understanding where things come from, not understanding that things are empty of nature of their own, that we create, that we create the world that we see and experience through mental constructs that come from us onto the world. And because of that, we like things ignorantly, right? So we might praise ourselves and criticize others out of that ignorance, you see, out of ignorant desire. Ignorant desire is the kind of desire that would cause harm to get what we want. Not understanding that the things that we want come from, that the things that we have that we, I guess, want, come from giving those to other people instead of taking them from other people, right? And then ignorant disliking would be, not accepting an apology or striking somebody, right? That comes from a kind of ignorance, ignorant disliking, like not knowing where the person that we're angry with comes from, right? The mistaken partner in the kitchen, which is a example, like we come home, if you're having a fight with somebody, like ignorant view of that is to say that they're out there and their mistaken view, and they're, yelling at me, and that's self-existent in that way, that I didn't do something to cause that to happen. All right. That's that the things that we don't like in our life, we get rid of by hurting other people. Like if I don't like you and I hurt you hard enough, you'll stop hurting me. Like that's ignorant disliking. All right. And all of that is born out of basic ignorance of not knowing where things come from. So, right, you guys know the pen, but so the pen is empty. It's a blank screen. I place pen on the pen. Guzman over here places juice stick on the pen, right? Blank screen. I'm forced to see it as a pen. My experience and the things that have brought me into this being the way I am forces me to see it that way. Doesn't mean that this is a pen from its own side, right? Same thing with the person that we're angry with. Like they aren't a bad person from their side. I make them that. I make this a pen. I make them a bad person. I make the thing that they're doing bad. That's forced on me by my experience, what I've done in the past. Okay. So how do I get rid of the person that I'm angry with? Anybody?
Yeah, except the fact that it's coming from me.
Yeah, right. And act appropriately, right?
I change my viewpoint. I think about why, and as Mark has taught us, what I've done in the past that has caused me to think this way now towards this person in front of me, and actually realize it's because I did something last week.
Right. And it might not have been last week. That's the thing, you know. You may not know where it came from.
Right.
It's nice if it came from last week, then it's like a little easier to like extrapolate, you know. So yeah, so how do you get rid of them? Yeah, first is understand where they came from, right? Second, don't hurt them back. Yeah. At the very least, don't say anything. And then, you know, if there's somebody that you can, if they are a person that you're able to work with, you know, you can do a kindness with them and evolve the relationship in a different way. If they're not, you can use another person, third party, karmic development. Find a karmic partner to work with that's having a similar, wants a similar thing that you do, or is having a similar problem, and help them. Okay. And then you can evolve that person out of your life. Yeah, it's interesting. Like you can do weird things. Like you can, you know, if you're having a problem with somebody over here and it's not a negotiable situation, it's just difficult. Like there's no relationship there to work with, then you know, you can just start to do kindnesses for others and dedicate it to seeing that change. Like that's the simple, it's really quite simple and quite effective. You know, it can be as simple as buying somebody a cup of coffee and donuts if they like donuts. Right. So, all right. So I just wanted to point that out about those vows, that they're working with the basic ignorances that we that we're born with, really. You know, the yogis would say that our very body takes shape around those ignorances. Like, yeah. You know, so which is interesting because then you know, there's a physiological component to these things. It's not purely mental. Like your whole being is formed out of how you treat other people. And therefore this body can evolve. You aren't, you know, you can evolve into a different kind of being. Okay. Now we'll move on to the fifth. Any questions? No? Okay. Move on to the fifth vow. Stealing what belongs to the three jewels. So, yeah, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Chonchok Kortrok. Konchok Kortrok. So, like this is, we don't know if, I mean, this would be done if you went into a temple or something like that and stole an artifact from a temple. If you knew of somebody being an enlightened being and you took something from them, that would be stealing from the Buddha jewel. The Sangha jewel is stealing something from anybody that's in the Sangha, and traditionally it would be somebody wearing robes. Otherwise, it's anybody who's taken vows, who's taken the Buddha, taken vows. So, so stealing something that belongs to them. Now, obviously this is a wrong worldview thing, but why do you think it's a root downfall? Like, to steal something, it's like they're, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Shirley. Were you going to say something?
Well, it just seems like such a fundamental thing to disrespect by taking what is not yours. I mean, it makes what you are impure in some way to me. But yeah, it just seems so fundamental. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be a kind of arrogance, and like you said, disrespect. Yeah. So, and it might also be a seeking gain of some sort, like an ignorant.
So is this just physical things or
what's that?
So when it says stealing, is just the physical things, or can it be like credit for things, or there are things other than physical things, right?
Yeah, right.
Ideas, or
to take credit for something that you didn't do.
Right.
You mean, yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I think that might fall under praising yourself in a way that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
But it could also be this.
Yeah, there seems like there is overlap, but I guess it doesn't. It's more important that you hold to these and not. That's more important than figuring out exactly what category they're in.
Yeah, right.
To Shirley's point, could you say like time, like stealing? Let's just say you knew someone to be an enlightened being, or a Sangha member, stealing their time, in a sense, wasting their time. Do you think that would fall into that?
I think if it was with the intent to harm,
Mm.
I think if if it was that they had the judgment you were wasting their time, I don't think that that would count. But if you had if you like what set out to waste their time, so maybe they couldn't do something else, I guess that would be that. Yeah, the Dharma would be stealing books, or the physical stuff of the Dharma. But like I have this thing that I was gifted. It's a painting, and it's got Shakyamuni Buddha in the middle of it, and then it's got the Buddhas of the five Buddha families around it, which is there's a whole story behind all of that, and it's old. I don't know where it came from, like say it came from one of a Tibetan shop in, I don't know, Manayunk or something, and but they got it from somebody who took it from a temple somewhere, I don't know. But I didn't intentionally steal it or anything, but it could be a stolen object. I don't know.
What would happen if you found out it was from a?
I'd give it back quickly.
Give it to a temple or something.
Yeah, and I'd do something for them. Yeah. So, but I think too, one of the beauties of Buddhism is that it doesn't deny the spiritual paths of other belief systems. And so I would think that this would be you'd be stealing what belongs to the three jewels if you were to discount the teachings of other traditions.
Right.
In a way that was to make them irrelevant. I think the teachings are there for all different types of people, all different, all these different traditions exist in the world because there's all these different kinds of people with all different cultural pressures and, whatever identity things that go on for them. And that if it's something that's helping someone evolve to a higher way of seeing life, that it's useful. So that's a place to be careful, where not to say, oh, that's not true, but to say, well, where does this fit with this, and that kind of thing, like to help other people maybe take themselves deeper through their own beliefs rather than discount somebody else's beliefs with the idea that you're going to like help them that way. A lot of times that ends up hurting the other person. Okay. But I think that that's a peripheral way of doing it. Like, so, which leads me to back to the 6 time. How do we track our vows, right? We use this book. It's a 6 time a day book. Like I have my little guy here, and so, right, because we're going to go through 64 vows. When you break them all apart into all their parts, it's like 123 vows. So how do you keep track of all that stuff? Like we cover it today, May 23rd, and you going to remember it in November? Probably not if you're a busy person, right? So, we have a way of tracking it, like we, use a book. And everybody know about the 6 time a day book?
Yes, yes,
Oh, good.
yes.
All right. Yeah. So that's how we do it with this guy. So good. Otherwise, you forget them, and so. So the book's really helpful. All right, now 6, you're going to think, wow, this is a lot like 4. So 6 is giving up the highest dharma. And this is so to break this down a little bit, this is denying the path of the listeners, denying the path of the self-made Buddhas, or denying the greater way, the path of the Mahayana. Self-made, the listeners are, that's a Hinayana practitioner, which I think we talked about last week, the difference between Mahayana and Hinayana. And so with that, does anybody need explanation of those two things? Okay, because so a listener is somebody who would like to follow the Mahayana path, but isn't able to do the practices for whatever reason. Like there's this whole sector of Buddhists that are called Pure Land Buddhists, whose life is just too busy. And they work from sun up to sundown every day just to feed their families and keep a roof over their heads. And their practice of Buddhism is, taking refuge. That's as far as they get in their practice of Buddhism. They're not able to practice the Mahayana, but they'll listen to the teachings, and they appreciate them. They resonate for them, but they're not able to practice. So those are the listeners. Then self-made Buddhas are people who in this life appear to become or are enlightened, but haven't had a teacher in this life. And so like I think if any of you have heard the teachings of Byron Katie or who's the other guy? Anyway, I think Byron Katie may be a self-made Buddha. She was like a drug addict and alcoholic. Woke up one morning, like after a drug-induced stupor, and was seeing emptiness directly, is the best I can explain based on what she says her experience was. And didn't speak for 2 years because she knew nothing she said was true. Interesting.
Eckhart Tolle is the other guy, would you say?
Eckhart Tolle, yeah, that's the other guy I was thinking of. I don't really know that, though. I don't know much of his teachings. So to break this vow would be giving up the highest dharma by denying the path of the listeners or the self-made Buddhas, right? So what they say about people like that is that they had teachings in many lifetimes before that brought them to a place where they were ready to, their egg was ready to open, right? It's interesting, in Buddhism, in Tibetan, there's a word for people who haven't seen emptiness yet, and they're called pakpas, which is a baby bird inside of its egg before it's hatched out of its egg, which is a good metaphor because there's so much outside that egg that's yet unexperienced. So, okay. So to deny that, or to deny the teachings of the greater way, which is very similar to the fourth vow, which is, giving up the greater way. So, and that would be also to say that the Mahayana teachings are unnecessary, right? So there's a famous story about this with Master Kamalashila and a Chinese teacher. Mark, you remember what his name was?
Xuanzang,
What?
Master Xuanzang. I don't know why that came to mind.
What song? What song?
It is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What
It's
song?
in my mind. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. I just heard it tonight.
It's been a long time since I told this story. So Washong it is, S-H-O-N-G.
Okay.
And Washong was a very charismatic teacher. He was from China, teaching in Tibet. And he was teaching that bodhicitta wasn't necessary, that teaching that it was a distraction from moving towards enlightenment, that all these Mahayana practitioners were wasting their time helping, with this idea of taking everybody along with them to enlightenment, and was teaching just meditate and become enlightened, like stop your mind from all its busyness, and you'll become enlightened, And so this the king of Tibet, it was causing like this big stir in the Dharma community, and the king of Tibet at the time summoned this guy, Master Kamalashila, to come to Tibet and to set the record straight. And they had many days. I think they debated each other for several days, and the Master Kamalashila won the debate clearly. And so in those days, if you lost a debate, your school lost to the other school. Like the teachings that you were following were no longer sanctioned by the state. If you were in a monastery or whatever, your monastery was subsumed by the other one. And so it was a big deal. And actually they Master Kamalashila then wrote the text, the Bhavana Krama, which is the text on meditation that is still used in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries as a reference guide to meditation. And then on his way back to India from Tibet, he was stoned to death by Washong followers who were upset about the debate outcome. So tough, but anyway, so that's teaching, that's giving up the greater way, right? Teaching that it's not necessary, that the Buddha didn't really teach it. Okay, then there's a seventh vow is the root downfall of taking away someone's robes and the rest, or removing them from the status of an ordained person. Yeah. So this is, this would be if you were to forcibly remove the robes from someone that's ordained, or force them to give up their vows. Which, happened in Tibet. When the Chinese came in, the monks were either killed, which, that's a forcible way of removing them from being ordained, or they were forced to give up their status as a monk, as monks or nuns. So how would we break a vow like that? I mean, we're very unlikely to force somebody to take remove their vows or remove their robes or anything like that forcibly. So, you just need to keep in mind how you regard the people of the cloth, people that are ordained. That's how I think about this. So in the 6 Time a Day book, this was something I was going to say before, like we look at it like peeling the layers of an onion. Like we're not going to take the robes off of an ordained person literally, but how figuratively might we do that? When you're at the subway and you see a Hare Krishna, how do you think of them? And, do you treat them with reverence or with disregard? Like that would be moving towards breaking this vow, right? If you treated them with disregard, with a lack of reverence, or even, like a lack of regard, right? So when you work through your book, like work through the subtle ways that you might move towards these vows, because a lot of them aren't something that you're going to literally break, that you could, I don't live near a Buddhist temple. I'm not going to steal something from a temple, but what are the more subtle ways that I could take the Dharma, and we talked about some of those things. Right. So then the 8th vow is the root downfall of committing one of the 5 immediate misdeeds. All right. So there's 5 parts to this. Like it'll break down in your book to 5 different vows, So the first one is killing your father. The second one is killing your mother. The third one is killing an arhat, which is somebody that has achieved nirvana. The fourth one is causing a schism in the Sangha. And the 5th one is trying to harm a Buddha or drawing blood on a Buddha. From a Buddha, yeah. Okay, so right. So the first 3, killing your father, your mother, or an arhat, these are all like high karmic objects for all of us, So our father and our mother gave us this life. At the very least, they gave us this life, and probably a lot more than that. If we survive to be adults, a lot of that can be attributed to our parents. And actually, I wanted to talk back about something that we talked about last week, which, because we had talked at one point about one of the ways to develop bodhicitta was to see everyone as your mother. And somebody, was it you, Shirley, who said that you had trouble with that?
I think that's Sandy, it was me.
Oh, it was you. Okay. And that it was easier for you to see everyone as your child.
Yep, Beth had mentioned that, and I don't have the same situation as Sandy, but I don't know why there's something about that that I don't really can't relate to or something. I like the exchanging self for others part,
Uh-huh.
and thinking that all people could be my children at some point, but I don't know why. There's something about the mother thing that is I don't know. Just
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah, I thought about it. I think it's different to think of everyone as your child than it is to think of them as your mother. And so I want to challenge you to look at what gets in your way with that. And exchanging self and others is a really good way to develop bodhicitta too. So um, very useful method, especially in circumstance. And I think it's different to look at others, and I think they all have been your children. And for the sake of developing bodhicitta, I think that method is it's different than thinking of them as your kids. And I invite you to explore that. And even if you had a difficult relationship with your mother, like she did bear you, she carried you, and she fed you and got you into this life. And, and maybe she hurt you. And anyway, it's something to explore, because I think it puts you in a different kind of position in your approach to others than seeing them as your kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be possible to think of, when we're doing the mother thing, to think more of an archetypal mother? Like, does
Maybe
it?
maybe for some of us, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. For me, it's helpful if it's like specific.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm working with humans, and we're all dealing with humans, and so they're aces in their spaces, and like if somebody's trying to harm me, and I think of them as that's my mom harming me, like it's then how would I respond if it was her?
Mm-hmm.
And archetypal just seems, I don't know, maybe it works. If it works for you, like I'm not going to tell you specifics. And actually, Sandy, if the kid thing is useful, no doubt, it's a great way of looking at it. And I just think it's different. And I don't know your experience with your mom, so I can't say, but yeah, I wouldn't say don't do it. I just think it's different and it's something worth exploring, right?
But what I tried to do is take it to the concept, take it out of my mother. Not that, like I talked, because I think it was when I was talking with the other group, Mark's group, I
Yeah.
mentioned issue, not in this group, but it's they're not. I was adopted, so apparently my birth mother didn't like me. They tell me, but the people who brought me, my adoptive mother, she did the best she could, but it's still the concepts there. So I tried to take it more. What I've been trying to wrap my head around now is the mother concept of
I gotcha.
what we're looking for, that nurturing belief,
Right.
ultimately it would mean to us, and not per se our personal mother. So
Yeah, then that makes sense.
trying to get away from the personal mother to this spiritual type of mother influence that we will be looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The archetypal mom that Tanya's talking about.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I like that word. I'm got to look it up.
I get you. Yeah, sure. But that's what you described, so you don't have to look it up. You know what you're talking about.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So and then an arhat, is someone that could bring you to your own liberation, your own freedom. So harming them, killing them would be, a root downfall for sure, if not worse. I don't know, something worse than that. Causing a schism in the Sangha, like that's something that we can't actually do it. It's the Sangha of the Buddha, like the direct Sangha of the Buddha is how the vow's written. So we can't actually break that vow, but at least with current view of things. So, but just being divisive about one of your Dharma mates can cause a schism, a separation in the Sangha, right? It's one of your freedom vows, like speak in ways to bring people together, right? And this Sangha that you guys have, the group of friends that are studying together, is a precious thing. And you want to be careful with it, treat it well. And if you get to know each other better over time, you'll have opportunities to either bring it closer together or to separate it, and with your thoughts and your words and your actions. So just it's something to watch out for. Okay. And the thing is too, that when it's a great container to test your worldview in, especially if your Dharma buddies are seeing things differently than you are. As it can get, I mean, in my school, it's gotten intense at times, and there have been divisions in it, and it's really destructive. It's I encourage you to to just pay attention to your vows and your worldview and, you know, go beneath personality if you can. Okay. And then the ninth one is the root downfall of holding wrong views. So this is, you know, wrong views. You know, traditionally there's a couple things that are spoken to in this, and one is the, you know, one is that karma, the laws of karma don't hold, that they're not true, that it's that it was cooked up by some, you know, subdued a couple thousand years ago, and I don't know why it's still around or whatever. But that the laws of karma aren't valid. That's one. And then the other wrong view is to not believe in past or future lives. So those are the two that if you jot those down in your notes, you'll cover one of the homework questions with. The other, you know, the basic wrong view is the view that that things have nature of their own. That would be a wrong view. Actually, there's two sides of it. So if you study emptiness, and they call it two sides to the cliff that you can go off on, and that are wrong views. One is that, you know, and I went off on this side for a while, actually, when I was early in my studies of emptiness. I just figured, you know, it makes sense that things are empty of nature of their own, but that means nothing exists. That it's all a dream. It's all bizarre, weird head trip, you know, that nothing exists at all. The other side is that things have inherent, that things exist as they appear to exist, that's the way things are. That's the other side of the cliff, right? Emptiness, the middle way on emptiness, is that things don't have nature of their own other than what we place on them with our mind. It doesn't mean that we're walking around in a void, like making a movie that, you know, it's not like that. We are making a movie, but it's not in a void space. It's void of nature. It's not a void space. Okay. Oh boy. All right. Have fun with that. All right. So did we talk about the difference between the fourth vow and the sixth vow? I don't think we did, really. The fourth vow is, you know, giving up the greater way, meaning the Mahayana, right? Or teaching false dharma. The sixth vow is very similar, giving up the highest dharma, right? So what's different about it is that the sixth one includes the path of the listeners and the path of the self-made Buddhas. It's basically saying that you can go through and just say any of the, so the Lord Buddha taught to different capacities, So he taught to the listeners, he taught teachings that would be meaningful to the listeners. And he taught Dharma that was meaningful to self-made Buddhas, and then he taught the Dharma that was, or even if they don't take the Dharma, like what their experience is legitimate, the self-made Buddha. Like, you know, Byron Katie's a great teacher in the world. And, you know, she's not a she's not a she's not a Prasangika practitioner, a middle way practitioner, but she can bring people almost all the way there with her teachings as a self-made Buddha, you know, just from her experience, right? So, yeah, so giving up, so that's how the sixth vow is different than the fourth vow. The fourth vow is just giving up the greater way. That might be like saying, you know, like what Washang did actually, saying that you don't need to practice bodhicitta to become fully enlightened. So what bodhicitta does, according to the teachings of the Buddha, is it gives a person the capacity to become fully enlightened, which is different than achieving nirvana. Nirvana is a level of practice where you no longer suffer. You're done with suffering. But you don't have bodhicitta, you don't have a Buddha's mind. And Buddha's mind sees all things in all times. It encompasses all consciousness, and that is due to their love for others, the developed love for all beings. It's the cause for that omniscient mind. Okay. Oh, so the Mahayana, giving up the Mahayana. So it would be to say that that's not necessary to achieve that level of attainment, that omniscient mind. Okay. Shall we say prayers? Can you bring them up, Mark? Thank you. So again, at the end of class, we'll do the mandala, and then we do dedication. So in the dedication prayer, that's the second one we'll do. Dedicate the work that you're doing in this class to an outcome that you want to see. And it can be whatever you can think of, you know, it can be a little thing or a big thing, right, that you dedicate it towards. So do the mandala prayer and then the dedication. Whoa. All right. Sashi. And so there's a mudra that we do with our hands. It looks like this, right? Where you take your pinkies and you cross them, and then you just kind of grab them with your thumbs. Then your ring fingers go back to back and point upward. And then you just weave your the four fingers, the index finger, middle finger on each hand together like that. Or you can just hold your hands like that, or you can just visualize a mandala, right? Okay. Sashi Puki Jukshin Metokram Rirablinchi Ninde Gimpadi Sangye Shindu Mikte Owarki Drokun Namdak Shingla Juparsha Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami Gewadi Kewokun Sunam Yeshe Zotsokshin Sunam Yeshe Lejungwe Dampa Kunito Parsho. Okay, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
Thank you.
All right. Have a good week. Okay.
Okay. You
Bye.
too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.